As of late 2024, I have ridden 104 roller coasters across the US and hope to ride many more in the coming year of 2025. I visit a lot of the big parks in the Midwest, with the most notable exceptions being Cedar Point and Six Flags Great America, which I'll hopefully visit finally in 2025. I've still been to many great parks over the years, including Kings Island, Universal's Islands of Adventure, and Silver Dollar City, to name a few. In terms of the rides I prefer, I usually like rides that focus on airtime, with good ride durations and maybe some good theming with them as well. So without further ado, let's get right into the ranking. At number 15, we have Thunderhead at Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. This intense GCI twister has some phenomenal pacing throughout the ride, and some good ejector airtime mixed in too. Every GCI I have been on are some of my favorite wooden coasters, and this ride is certainly no exception. It's a bit on the rougher side, or at least it was during my ride in 2021, but still very re-rideable. It honestly comes very close to the best ride in the park, and some even say it is the best, but we'll see that ride later in the list. At number 14, we have Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California. This fun Gerstlauer Infinity coaster has a great first drop and airtime throughout the ride, along with 6 really solid inversions. It's also fairly smooth for the manufacturer and is my favorite Gerstlauer because of that as well. The lap bars really help make this ride as fun as possible, as you feel so free throughout the ride. The ride is a bit on the shorter side, so that's why it isn't further up this list, but it's still an all-around great coaster for that park. It looks especially great at night with its KCL lighting package, and it's remarkable how they fit that ride into basically the plot of an average boomerang model. At number 13, we have Accelerator, also at Knott's Berry Farm. This intimate hydraulic launch coaster ended up being my favorite coaster in the park, with Ghost Rider being closed all day, but it's still a very worthy number 1 for this park. The launch is absolutely insane and easily the best on any coaster I've been on. It just whips you right out of the station into a massive 200-foot top hat, and you get some great airtime on that too. Now after that, the ride just has some overbank turns that are actually pretty fun, but ends the ride pretty quickly. Still, this ride packs some major punches, an absolute must-do when you're on the West Coast. At number 12, we have Prowler at Worlds of Fun in Kansas City, Missouri. Another fantastic GCI terrain coaster. This ride hugs the ground basically the entire time and has a ton of airtime packed into it too. Especially towards the end of the day, this ride was absolutely hauling through its layout and was a little smoother than its previously mentioned Dollywood counterpart. It still definitely has that wooden coaster bite to it, but it's not too much to where you wouldn't want to keep riding it over and over again. Surprisingly, this is not my favorite ride at the park, and we'll see that phenomenal coaster a little later in the video. At number 11, we have Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom in Louisville, Kentucky. This Chance Rides Hyper GTX has some insane shirt-lifting airtime throughout the ride, along with a very smooth layout. It also features these really whippy low-to-the-ground turns towards the end that have fantastic laterals. I don't know why more of these haven't popped up at smaller parks, as this ride really didn't cost that much. The ride's restraints do kind of clamp down on you as the ride goes on, but other than that, the ride is fantastic. Twin Mill Racer in Arizona will hopefully finally open next year as the second Hyper GTX, this time with a launch and inversions, and hopefully will lead to many more to follow. At number 10, we have Orion at Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. The first of 3 coasters from this fantastic park on this list. This B&M Giga coaster is still the tallest and fastest coaster I have been on, and you really feel the speed on its first few elements. The drop really feels like you're falling off the face of the earth, and the speed hill gives amazing sustained flow to airtime. The little off-axis hill at the end also catches you off guard, as probably the strongest moment of airtime on the ride. The theming around the coaster also really helps build anticipation for your ride and features a great soundtrack in the queue line. It doesn't feature quite the same intensity or airtime as the top 2 in the park, but easily makes Kings Island have one of the best top 3s in the country. At number 9, we have our one and only Disney roller coaster on the list, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot in Orlando, Florida. This is easily the best coaster Disney has ever done, and I would even dare to say the best ride, period, even over Rise of the Resistance. It's actually pretty intense with a backwards launch to begin and a spinning element to the seats that rotate toward story elements during your ride. It also features quite a bit of airtime and a fantastic onboard soundtrack featuring many great 80s songs. I was just dying of laughter the entire time due to how fun it was and how much it caught me off guard. I really wasn't expecting that good of a coaster to be at a Disney park, but here we are. This is a perfect example of a complete package roller coaster that combines theming and thrills to the fullest extent. At number 8, we have Lightning Rod at Dollywood. This RMC hybrid coaster has fallen a bit in my ranking since I first rode in 2021, but it's still a fantastic ride. It has some amazing shirt-lifting airtime, especially on the quad down at the end of the ride. I did ride it with the launch on the lift hill, but it honestly didn't add a ton to the ride for me. I do really wish this ride had some inversions mixed in with the amazing airtime, like some other RMCs later in the list, as I would surely rank it a bit higher. It's still a must-do when in the Smoky Mountains, and my favorite in the park, but it has lost its bite a bit with the changes in the last few years. At number 7, we have Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. This GCI Woody has actually risen a lot for me since I rode in 2020. It's currently my favorite traditional wooden coaster by a good margin, and I even put it over Lightning Rod based on my rides during Winterfest last year, as it was hauling faster than ever before, especially at night in the rain when I rode. It is just so much ejector airtime packed into its layout, with some really solid lateral moments too. The shed is kind of a meme at this point, but it's still better than sitting on the brake run for a few minutes. It's just a perfect wooden coaster and one of the most re-rideable coasters I've ever been on. At number 6, we have Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. This RMC wooden coaster is an absolute powerhouse in its short layout with 3 amazing inversions, which is still the most for a wooden coaster to this day. The double barrel roll finale is easily my favorite part of the ride, and it provides so much hang time for the whole train. The first drop also plunges you in the Ozark wilderness, and I'm sure a night ride on this is absolutely insane and one of the best in the entire country due to its location. It's certainly the roughest of the 3 RMCs I've been on, but it's honestly not that rough in the grand scheme of things. I do wish it was a bit longer, but there are so many great elements packed in, including a wave turn halfway through, that it feels pretty fulfilling by the end of your ride. At number 5 is Diamondback at Kings Island. This B&M Hypercoaster is just pure floater airtime throughout your over 60-second ride duration, and it just floats you out of your seat the entire ride. It's not as intense or speedy as Mystic or Orion, but there's no better ride that I've been on for just the pure quantity of airtime that this ride provides. It also has some amazing restraints that make you fully enjoy the amazing floating sensation throughout the ride. The ride also is very photogenic in the park skyline and has a great splashdown finale that I almost always photograph when visiting Kings Island. It is pretty much just a one-trick pony, but it does that trick to perfection. At number 4, we have Mamba at Worlds of Fun. This is probably my hottest take on the list, but this is one of the most underrated coasters in the country, in my opinion. This Morgan Hypercoaster has been taken to another level with the mid-course trims taken off, as the second half absolutely launches you out of your seat now. The first half is still really good too, with some good floater airtime moments, into a very intense helix near the road into the park. The second half is definitely the star of the show though, with ejector hill after ejector hill that just jolts you out of your seat in the best way possible. It's definitely not for everyone, but I absolutely loved it, and I hope the trims stay off for as long as possible. At number 3, we have Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City. This Mock Rides Extreme Spinning Coaster is just everything that I love in a roller coaster. There's a cool steampunk theme throughout the queue line, an amazing 90-degree airtime-filled drop right out of the station, many hang time-filled inversions, launches, and oh yeah, you're spinning the whole time too. Now it's a controlled spin, which is amazing because you can take all of these great elements at a weird angle, but you also don't really get motion sick since it's controlled. It also is glass smooth, so I would just ride this over and over again if I went to this fantastic park again. But then again, there's a ton of great stuff to do at this park, so I don't know. In any case, you have to experience this ride, and it makes me even more hyped for whenever I ride its sister coaster in Belgium, Ride to Happiness, as that looks somehow even more insane. At number 2, we have Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. This amazing RMC steel coaster has everything an enthusiast wants, and then some. It probably has the strongest airtime I've ever experienced, glass smooth track, and some really great inversions too. The barrel roll drop to begin the ride is just a great way to begin, and immediately sends you out of your seat before getting launched out again by another great ejector hill. I need to get back to this park just to ride this amazing coaster because I haven't been back since I first rode in 2021, but this ride is worth the visit alone. It's really telling how great a coaster this really is when I haven't moved it down at all since my last ranking, even though I rode 40 more coasters since that video. That also goes for my number 1 coaster that has been my number 1 since I first rode in October of 2021. And as if there was any doubt, my number 1 is of course the almighty Velocicoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure in Orlando, Florida. This ride is literally every conceivable thing you could want in a roller coaster. It has launches, it has airtime, it has inversions, it has theming, and even a fantastic setting along the lake that the park surrounds. It's glass smooth and has some really open restraints that make you feel every moment of ejector throughout the ride. The Mosasaurus roll especially stands out as the highlight of the ride and is probably one of the best inversions in the world, as you somehow get ejector airtime while you're upside down. And oh yeah, it's over the water too. It doesn't quite have the pure power that Storm Chaser does, but the launches and length of the ride more than make up for that, and it makes it super re-rideable too. It honestly hasn't been challenged that much since my first ride in 2021 for my overall best spot, but I hope to get on some more great coasters in 2025 to improve my list even more. Do you agree with Velocicoaster being the best on this list, or do you think it's another coaster? Post your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe for more content and check out my reviews of all the coasters on this list.